Morning, everybody. So we're out early on April 30th, and I thought today would be a good day to share with you some ideas on spring photography. Where we are today is in the Southern Adirondacks, and the goal, hopefully, is to be able to shoot some spring wildflowers, waterfalls, and anything else that we might try to capture when things still aren't all that green. You know, there's not a whole lot of bloom here. There's not a lot of flowers or leaves on the trees right now, so we'll do the best we can. Well, that didn't work out as planned, so you're going to find that the rest of this video is more focused on me taking photographs of the waterfalls. This particular area in the Southern Adirondacks where I went has 3 sets of waterfalls, and I was hoping that we would get a good amount of water coming over the tops of those waterfalls due to the spring thaw, which did actually occur. So we had some great opportunities to shoot some waterfalls. What we didn't have good opportunities for was shooting any wildflowers or plants. It was just too soon in the season for there to be really any wildflowers or plants in this particular area where I was. So hopefully you'll get some ideas and pick up a few tips on how I'm shooting waterfalls and how it might help you with shooting waterfalls where you are. So back to the video. So I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there's a bird singing. And one of the things that I like to take with me when I'm walking through the woods is an app called Merlin from the Cornell lab. So one of the things that you can do with this app in order to identify the bird is you can get a photo ID, a sound ID, or you can explore some birds. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on sound ID and click on record. And you'll see that it comes back with a winter wren. Pretty cool. So hopefully you can all hear me okay. I just came across this stream on our way to my first destination, which is a larger set of waterfalls, but this scene just caught my eye. So I'm thinking that what we'll do is I'm going to set the tripod up real quick. We'll figure out what lens we need to use for this composition, and then we'll see if we can't get a decent image out of it, and then we'll head on to our next set of waterfalls. I've set up the composition. Let me explain what I've done here, and then we'll take the shot. So I've set up my tripod with the camera down relatively low so that I don't get too much of that hill behind the top waterfall. So the goal here is to try to not blow out the highlights, especially on that upper waterfall. So I've set the camera up, and we'll put it in live view. So what I'm doing right now is, in order to make sure that I can blur the water, I need to get a slow enough shutter speed, but at the same time I need to get depth of field. So where I want to shoot is on, or focus is on that first rock, which is here in my image, and I know that from there halfway back to the camera everything will be in focus, and everything to infinity will be in focus when I set my aperture to f11. So what I need to do is I need to bump up the ISO, but even if I bump up the ISO to 500, which is where I'm at now, then I know that I'm still gonna have too wide of a contrast between my highlights and my shadows. So I'm bracketing here. You can see I've got 5 stops of light that I'm bracketing, and I'm stopping, or I'm bracketing it at 2/3 of a stop, 5 times. So going up from the normal exposure up 2/3, and then up again another 1 1/3, and the same on the darker exposure. So we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and set that to 2-second timer. So this is the image that we're going to end up getting at the brightest highlights. And then the next brightest, normal exposure, darkest or darker, and then the darkest exposure. And you'll see that the blinkies aren't really going off too much or too badly here. I'm not too concerned with these up in here, and we might be able to take care of those in post-processing. Okay, so hopefully everybody can hear me okay. So we're at the first set of waterfalls where I want to set up and try to find a composition. I've taken a walk around and I think I know the composition I want to make, which is right here. I want to utilize these 2 rocks in the foreground and zoom in order to get the falls to fall right into the notch, I guess, of the 2 rocks that you see in front, and then leave a long exposure in order to have that wispy look for the waterfalls, but I'm also going to capture it at a higher speed so that we capture it the way it looks right now. So I'm going to set up the tripod and I'll bring you back with me in a minute. Okay, so it may seem counterintuitive, but in order for me to compress the distance between the waterfalls and my foreground elements, which are those 2 rocks, I'm about 30 feet back from where those 2 rocks are that I want my foreground. So when I take this shot, it seems counterintuitive to have a long lens on the camera, but since I don't want my waterfalls to be dwarfed in the image, I'm actually shooting 30 feet back, and then hopefully will compress the distance between the waterfalls and the boulders. So I'm shooting at f10 for 30 seconds, and then I'm going to hand hold that with the image stabilization on this lens, and I should be able to get a clean image. I'll take a couple images. If they come out, I'll show them here. Alright, so as you can see, we've made it to the second set of falls on the creek. We've got the falls right behind me, and they're set in the shadows. We've got some sunlight peering through, so we're going to have to be careful. We may end up getting some specular highlights in the shot. We can, take care of that either by doing multiple exposures or handling it in post-processing. But it's a beautiful spot here. It's nice and quiet, other than the falls and the creek here. But we got some good foreground elements in the begin up in front here with some of the round boulders. And I've got this tree here. I'm not really sure I'm going to leave that in the composition. I'll have to think about that. There's some red buds here, but it's still kind of distracting. Probably will look better once we've got some leaves on the tree. But yeah, this is a beautiful spot. I think what I'll do is I'll figure out what my composition is going to be. I'll set it up, and then I'll bring you back with me here in a moment. As you can see, I've got the 70-200 zoom lens on the front of the camera, and I've got us all set up on the tripod, and I'm zooming in right in on the waterfalls. I'm getting some of the sunlight coming in to the creek, so there's some good color here and some good light. One of the challenges that I'm having, and then I'll show you here, is that I'm trying to expose to the right, but as I mentioned earlier, the specular highlights are just peaking and losing detail in the highlights on the right side of the histogram. I'm not too overly concerned with that. If I needed to, I could expose to the left a little more and then just blend the two images together. But I think that will be good with that exposure, and if it turns out any good, then I'll show it here. Alright, so looks like we did a total of 6¼ miles today, just under 5 hours. So good day out. I'm sure as many of you can attest to carrying a 32-pound bag full of camera equipment and a tripod, food and water, definitely makes for a good workout. Didn't turn out to be the spring flower or foliage photography that I had planned, along with the waterfalls, but at least we get some waterfall shots in there. Hopefully you've learned how I shoot waterfalls. Maybe you've gained some new insight as to how you might be able to shoot some waterfalls yourself. If you enjoy this type of content, I'd appreciate it if you'd give me a like and a thumbs up, since that's how the YouTube algorithms work as far as you know, getting more views for my videos. And if you like this kind of content and being outdoors, nature, landscape photography, adventure photography, hopefully I'll be able to get out with the canoe in June or July into some more remote wilderness areas and doing some photography there as well. Please, consider subscribing. Again, thanks for taking time out of your day to watch the video. Get outdoors and capture some great light.